Welcome to the DYSON'S effect.
A show about everyday situations, issues, and topics we talk about and give our opinions.
We may even listen to yours.
We are your hosts, Johnny
and Theresa,
also known as Mr. and Mrs. Dyson.
The one and only, the benevolent, the beneficent. This is Johnny.
And this is Theresa.
And this is another episode of the
DYSON'S effect.
Yeah, that intro nice. Intro nice. Beat drop is nice. This is nice. This is interesting. This is nice. How you doing, beautiful?
I'm here.
You here? I love the wonderful attitudes you have and the gorgeous smile that you're showing the world. If you're gonna go with a smile, like the Joker said. This is a topic that we've seen on social media. How's your attitude been thus far? How you been feeling lately? Because this topic is a different perspective from your point of view and maybe from my point of view. And I think this is also interesting as maybe some things that I've seen growing up as well. So, I got something. I got something. So the name of this topic, or the topic is Beautiful Wife. And she's looking for it.
Do you think, or do y'all think, no dad is better than an inconsistent dad? Is what someone put via social media.
So, what about, let's look at it community-wise. What about your friends? How many of your friends, growing up-wise, had a relationship with their father? None of your friends? Tina, okay. Not one. Okay. That's one out of all of your friends.
I mean, it wasn't like I had a lot of friends. So.
No, but maybe some associates. You did grow up with a lot of people in the project, so was it someone that you remember spent time that was an associate?
Well, Terica dad was in the picture.
Okay. Terica dad.
Tamela dad was in the picture.
Dad. Okay. So looking at those, for an example, looking at those that had a father, do you think that they were treated differently as opposed to friends?
What do you mean treated differently? Who treated them differently? Me or?
Not you technically, but sometimes people treat you differently because you have a parent and you have both parents. Boys may act differently around you, or as opposed, being that you're a girl. If you are a boy and one of your friends got a father around, it's different. It's different. So looking back, you don't think that was the issue or not? Interesting.
I mean, I wouldn't have noticed that.
that's outward. So inward, some of your siblings have different fathers. Any other of your siblings had a relationship with their father?
I mean, inconsistently, yes.
So they had an inconsistent relationship with their father. How many siblings? They had an inconsistent relationship with their father.
Probably just two that I remember. I don't know.
Two. Do you think your siblings would have turned out differently if they had their father around in their life? The ones, compare both. The ones that father did not come around, as opposed to the ones. Well, let me go back.
Yeah, because
Let's go back. So the ones that have an inconsistent father, as opposed to the consistent father, is it a difference on how they grew up? Like it didn't make a difference on their lives?
it still ain't shit. Either way.
Their fathers not? Yes. The siblings?
Both.
I was just you're so thoughtful. Hook, line, and sinker. So, it didn't make a difference on your siblings that their father was around or not. Okay, so okay.
I don't think just because your father is around or not around, it defines, I guess, who you are. Some people may think so.
Please elaborate on it.
I just think you're gonna be who you're gonna be.
Explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old.
You're gonna be who you're gonna be, regardless of who's in your life. If there's things in life that you want and you want to accomplish it, no matter what, I guess, who you had in your life coming up, you're going to reach those goals and do those things if it's something that you want. So seeing that because your father or your mother wasn't in your life, you out here doing drugs, I think that's kind of a cop out or an easy way out to blame someone else for your issues or your problems. You're doing drugs because you wanted to do drugs, not because you didn't have a mom or you didn't have a father in your life.
That's interesting. That's interesting because you are so cold-hearted. Boy.
I don't care.
You is like a drug dealer in the not the 90s. You like a drug dealer in the 80s that got all the dope. You like you selling it to baby mamas. You like Lucky was cool and paid him for it. You like so how we socialize makes a difference. For example, as I said before, when you're around certain people, you pick up certain traits of those certain people, willingly and unwillingly. You can see that in language that we speak. If you have a new friend that just started hanging around y'all, basically this new friend is gonna pick up the same language, gonna pick up the same slang, gonna pick up, may end up dressing like y'all. When you are younger, you are more impressionable than you may think. The mind is not that developed yet or strong enough to develop to know what to push away or not push away. So if friends can be impactful, definitely a father can be impactful. Simply because a father can mold you into being whatever you are. So, not that they can change you, they can mold you into being whatever. They can show you hard work. He can give you wisdom. He can give you all those things that you may not know you need.
But that's if they're willing to soak that in and adapt to that. So you can give all that, but is it going to be received?
Yes, that is true.
Why are our kids dumb then?
That's separate than what I'm saying. What I'm saying is a father in a child's life can make an impact you, I'm talking on what you saying. If someone's saying that, I'm going to your point. You said if someone's on drugs or someone, you said you're going to be whoever you're going to be, whether your father is around or not. If you're on drugs and you were saying that I'm on drugs because my father was not around, you're basically saying that's not true. You're on drugs because you're using that as a crutch, and you're leaning on this based on all this. Both can be true. So yes, they are using that as a crutch. What was that one show we watched? And it was about all these people. Dope Sick Nation. It came on Vice. Vice is one of my favorite channels. But basically, all these people had these ailments, these issues. No, what's the other one? It's another one. When they was helping people get off drugs. Come on, when they send them off to a retreat and they go like in intervention. Okay, all those people have issues, right, wrong, and different.
Right, and a lot of their issues are from their childhood.
Many are, and some are after childhood. Yes, many are. Yes, but and some father was around. And many fathers was around in those situations, and as it relates to kids having a father around. But what I'm saying is, when you both can be true, meaning that when a person is on drugs, how they receive what they're going through is different as opposed to who can mold them in being something later. Like, if, case in point, learned this in my psychology class. Great example. Said you do this to a child. They play baseball. Hits a home run. Smack them on the butt. Good play in basketball, football. Good job. Hit them on the butt. Hit them on the back. The same amount of strength, the same amount of power. All this has been tested. When a child do something wrong, you hit them the same way on the butt. The same way. And sometimes lighter. They will break down crying. Simply because the psychological effect is done on the brain. They know they done something bad. They know this has impacted them. This hurts them more. But they receive that differently. Now, there's people that says whooping has traumatized them, right, wrong, and indifferent. But they can use that as turned it into beatings. They can use that as in turning into whatever it is they want to. But then on the other side, you have people that are very successful that said, yeah, I should have got a whooping for that because we almost burnt down the house. Like, you see what I'm saying? So both can be true. Like, someone can be on drugs and be traumatized and using these things as a crutch, and using not having a father or inconsistent father and using that as a crutch to do drugs. But I do think a father can be impactful. There have been statistical studies to show the difference in a two-parent household as opposed to a one-parent household. And there also have been studies to show how impactful fathers is in kids' life.
So you think if your father was still alive, your siblings would be different?
Oh, 100%. Now, granted, I'm biased because I'm talking about my father. But if we're gonna talk about my father, we're gonna talk about my father. I know for a fact, even I would be different. I would be different. As I said before, our father passed away when all of us was young. So my mother has us. So my father had one. Shout out to my oldest sister, Priscilla. He had one when he met my mother, and then he had my sister, me, then my brother Eddie. So he had those four. Then, like 2 years before he passed, I'll say about maybe 2 or 3 years before he passed, he had my other 3 set of brothers. Now, all of us are impacted differently on how he passed. Now, for example, my older sister can say, because my older sister can say my father was inconsistent, and then she moved, so she can say my father was inconsistent, even though he picked her up. But that's based on her experience. The oldest of us is my second sister. She's 2 years older than me at that time, so that was 13. I'm 11. Eddie's a year behind me, so 8. So that's us three. So we have those amount of years with my father. The youngest three have no experience of even knowing him. Like, they only know him of pictures. Now, and I'm saying that to say that hurts. Like, that hurts to know your father was around, and like I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, it could be kind of said biasly. But I know because I know all of my brothers. I know all of both my sisters. I know like I know the impact that my father made on their lives right now, and I know if he was around, all of us would have grew up differently. 100, probably 1,000%. I know that for a fact. All of us. As I said before, I'm gonna wait on that. But what I'm saying is, we socialize differently. Another thing is, just like I heard it on the podcast the other day, the comedian Roy Wood Jr. was saying that his father was around, but he didn't know the thing his father didn't do until he started doing with his son. Like, hey, you think them was some regular old crackers. But like playing catch. He said his father didn't never play catch with him. It was like, his father was around. He said father never played catch with him. I just was hearing another guy saying that his father never showed him how to throw a ball. And that's one thing that he said, it just stuck with him. Like, that like messed him up. Like throwing a football or throwing a baseball. He's like, those things, he's like, my father didn't teach me that. And it's different. Like, that bonding you spend with your father as a boy, it's astronomical difference. It molds you. It changes you, how you socialize. You see, when a son sees his father as his hero, like, man, that's my daddy. From like, man, you be like, man, that's my dad. Like, imagine not having no hero when you grow up. And then a girl, that's your protector. Like, wow, that's my hero, but also that's my hero that protects me. Like, and you looking up to this person. All these kids, you looking up to this person. Like, wow, that's my dad. So I disagree. It's a good point that you're making because I understand it, but I think that your father can mold you. Like, if you're gonna be an ambitious person, he can mold you in showing you what ambition is, because you don't know what the word means. You never seen it before. By the time you get older, you can say, "Oh, that was ambition my father showed me. Oh, my father showed me hard work. Oh, my father," and I can say the same things for a woman. My mother showed me, but we're gonna talk about fathers. My father showed me what education is. My father was smart. My father was a hustler. My father was this. My father, like, it was one judge. I can't remember which one of the judges shows or whatever. And she said her father always provided because he was a hustler, but he never did anything legal. He just had all type of hustling type jobs, like washing cars, cutting grass, and all that stuff. So she said her father was a hero. The other judge that was on the divorce court, the last one, I can't remember her name, Lynn Toller. Mm-hmm. She was saying that her father has mental issues, but regardless of her father issues, he was still her hero. So, and I know I'm trying to hit this home. for your friends that had it's a difference, and it probably would have made a difference in your house, in your with your siblings, because they could have been shown something differently. Even though we was living in Ben Harbor, they could have been shown something differently. I mean, it's hard to describe. They impact kids differently. They do. I see it when I'm out. When we out places, and I see a guy with his son, or a man with his grandson, like I see the glare in these little kids' eyes, like you can't describe it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't describe it. You can't describe it. As I said before, I had a certain semblance, seen a picture of my father, and broke down crying. And here it is, I'm over 40 years old, and that still impacts them till this day.
Mm.
So it makes a difference, an astronomical amount of difference. I mean, yeah. So it's a good chance. Let's turn the tables a little bit. Let's turn the tables on this. It's a good possible chance, even though education, problem solving, decision making process makes a difference in this. We kind of grew up in the same situation, almost, being in Benton Harbor. I was just living in a home going through it, you were living in projects going through it. We kind of going through the same thing. Mm-hmm. But the probability of two-parent households makes a difference. Although living in the projects, it wasn't that many two-parent households. It was a difference. So, it's also well, what do you think about, what's your relationship with your father?
I mean, he's dead now, but there was a relationship up until maybe I was 13, maybe 12, 13, and then it just stopped. I don't know what happened, but I do know that I used to go over there on weekends and stay all night and be around his side of the family, and then it just stopped. So there was no relationship once I got older.
So let's just take that for example, because that's similar to my situation, somewhat similar. So from the time you were do you have the youngest memory of your father? Not the oldest, the younger. Like if you was like a toddler, you remember doing something with your father?
Maybe 6, 5, 6.
What can you remember at that time at 6 or 7?
Just going over, being around him, being
So,
around his family, his
so
mom.
at that time, you had a relationship with your father. Mm-hmm. Being that you had a relationship with your father, looking back on what you see now, was he consistent in that 12 or 13 years? Or in the time that he was that a consistent basis?
No, I'm gonna say inconsistent.
It was inconsistent. Okay, so that was an inconsistent from the time that he spent. That was inconsistent. And do you feel that after that? So you knew who your father was. You didn't know where he lived as you got older, or you did know where he lived when you got older. Like,
I probably knew. I didn't.
What you?
Well, I probably didn't. I don't really know. I don't know.
You never asked yourself none of these questions.
I didn't care as I got older.
Why you didn't care?
Because I felt like you were the father, so you didn't make any contacts or contacted me or try to see what I had going on. So it was just out of sight, out of mind thing for me.
Yeah, phooey. You don't think I need some shoes, Dad? Need some shoes.
Yeah, I mean, once I got grown and started having kids, it was just like really no point of you.
So let's just say you had your first child, Gianna, at 17, 16?
18.
At 18, so from 12 to 16. What about that time period? Was you curious about your father then? Now, and you think that has no impact on your life?
No.
No? Well, as I said on this podcast before, there's different levels of impact someone can make. There's different levels of, well, as I said, like a sliding scale on what matters the most. We all have to challenge ourselves in those ways on, things that happened to us in our past. But the interesting thing is that you're definitely impacted by that. I see it every day. There's a saying that people from our neighborhood and people say, like young girls say, you ain't my daddy. You ain't my daddy, you can't tell me what to do. And you tell that to everybody. That's like a saying that a lot of girls say. And I call it you ain't my daddy syndrome. Because you carry that crutch on your shoulders. Women in general carry that crutch on their shoulders. Because can't nobody tell them what to do, and now that I'm grown, you ain't my daddy, and I'll do what I want to do. And you become hard because of that. So other girls that don't grow up with their father, they become hardened because of that, and they make a lot of different choices, some right, some wrong, just think that you had your first child at 18. Just think if your father was in your life, what if he was the type that'll help you, not necessarily, let's not even say college, because where we're from, a lot of people didn't go to college. Let's just say he was to help you get a job when you was 18, and me and you would have never met.
And you probably wouldn't even have your first time.
Right? So, if you probably wouldn't have had your first child, that means your life probably would have been different in some way, shape, form, fashion, right?
Yeah, so
That's impactful.
Yeah.
That's impactful right there. Right? If he said, I want to say it's TD Jakes. I think it was TD Jakes. For every child that doesn't have a father, there's a hole in their heart the size of their father. Like, out of my friends, I know 1, 2, my childhood friends. Wow, 1, 2, 3. I want to say 4 that knew their father. Now, all of the other ones did not have their father around. No, it is 4. Okay, 4. That 4.5. 2 of them was brothers. And they had the same father. So 4. They knew their father. One of them was inconsistent. No, all 3 of them was inconsistent. There was only one man that I knew that was consistent in that child's life. And he stayed right across the street from us, and he knew my father, and his son lived right around the corner, and I was friends with both of them. He made an impact on both of their lives. How they grew up is how they grew up. He showed them different things. How they grew up is how they grew up. I think he made an impact on their lives. Well, one of them is their stepfather, so there's some bitterness with that. And he knew his real father. His real father was very inconsistent, like every now and then. So, you don't think it matters, inconsistent father or consistent father? Your opinion, it doesn't matter.
I mean, it's. I mean, I feel like if you're not going to be consistent, then it's like not having a father at all. Because if you're here every 6 months or here once a year, or and all these other times, I'm figuring it out. It's like just stay consistent with being inconsistent, if that makes sense. Like, don't pop up once a year to check on me. Just keep it inconsistent the whole time. I feel like it would be better that way. And opposed you coming, getting my emotions all riled up to see you, to spend time with you, thinking things are going to be different, and then it turns around to be the same. I think that does more hurt than harm to a person.
Why?
Because you show up and you have this, especially if they're little kids, and you have their hopes of their dad coming, and you're like, yeah, I'll be back, I'm coming to get you, you're going to stay the weekend with me, and then you're gone for another year. So you got to think, what did that do to that 5-year-old or that 6-year-old that sat there and probably cried for hours because you never showed up? Not only did you not ever show up, it's been a year. You know what I'm saying? So now this child is older, and in their head, when they get older, all they're gonna know is that trauma of you being inconsistent. They ain't gonna pretty much go off the happy times when you came. They're gonna go off of, yeah, my dad showed up and said he'll be back, and I didn't see him for another year. That's gonna be more of a memory than you showing up. They're gonna remember you showed up and then disappeared for a year.
I got a messed up story too. One of my sister friends that she got 2 kids by this guy that I know. I'll say that I know. He said he was gonna come get the kids. Kids is right around the same age. They're like 1 or 2 years apart. So it was like on a Friday or Saturday. I guess he had called him and told him, "Man, don't you know this dirty dude, man? This is dirty how he did it, to your point." Told him he was gonna come by, and she stayed at home waiting. I think it was on a Friday. They was gonna come by. He was gonna get him for the weekend. Don't you know? The kids stayed at the door, waiting at the door for him to come by, and he didn't even come. Mm-hmm. So then, they was dressed, had their clothes ready. So then the next day, that Saturday, he didn't even come, and they were still hoping he was gonna come by. I'm like, and he didn't come. I'm like, oh my God. They were literally waiting at the door for him like all day. And Saturday, in their mind, they thought, well, at least we'll be with him today and Sunday. They bring it back Sunday, like, and he didn't. I'm like, are you for real? He's a real scumbag. I think he got like 9, 10, 11 kids.
But yeah, so being inconsistent like that, I think does more hurt than it does with you not being there. If you can't be 100% there, especially if you ain't in a military or, something, truck driver, I don't know, something like that, And there's really no excuse for it. It's just like, don't ruin that child hopes of you being there when you know deep down that you're not going to be there. And I'm sure a lot of women that have children by men like that prefer you to just stay out the picture, in opposed to popping up once a year. Because then you got to go through this again, like, oh, that's your dad, and da 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 da, and then you gone.
Pure.
Yeah, so I think being inconsistent does more harm.
So that says some kids like, I only know my dad's ass. 'Cause that's the only part I ever seen of. Dad, you don't think I need anything? I'm just not gonna hear from you or nothing, huh? And then you know what's bad, because we grew up in a small city. So I know when for the ones that lived in the same city, it ain't funny, but it's fucked up. Like, no, the dad would like see where the kid live, and or see him be like, like how it's. I think it's worse if you're in a small city. You know what I'm saying? Because like our radius is only so big. Like we're from a city that everybody go to the same high school. So when you don't come by and see your child, you just like, I was like, even if you got something to do, so so I think you'd have turned out differently though if your father was around. I know, and you do have a situation in your family when you had an opportunity to grow up with one of your uncles, right? So it was a possibility that you could grow up with one of your uncles. Now, do you think you would have grew up the same if you would have grew up with one of your uncles? Plot thickens.
No, I wouldn't have grew up the same with my uncle.
Why?
Because he didn't grow up. He always worked. He always had a house. He didn't live in the projects.
Right.
So no.
Is that your favorite uncle? He's just so cold-hearted. It's just ridiculous. It's sad. You gotta soften up a little bit. So, which proves my point. If you'd have grew up with your uncle, living with your uncle, you would have grew up differently. 100% differently. Like, you just would have been a whole nother type of person.
I probably would have went away for school, college, everything.
Right.
Because it was like a silver spoon being raised by him.
Not just that.
More opportunities,
absolutely more resources and everything. And even also, he probably, because he had his son, he helped him get a job. So yeah, he helped his son get a job before where he was working at, where he worked at for like 20-something years. So, which proves my point, but not just that. He's also one of the successful ones in the family too, correct? Like where we grew up at, where we were from, he lived in a good neighborhood, part of town. Nice house, always worked, always had nice cars, clothes, so on and so forth, right? So apparently, he would have gave his niece that would have been living with him the same things, or if not more, right? So you would have grew up differently. You just would have grew up differently if he was more, if you grew up with him. Which would soften you up on a lot of different issues in life. I think life has made you hard in so many ways. It's hard for you to look at things differently because you was hard. You were like, I ain't no father, like, so like this how it is. So what? And you hard about it. So you would have been softer on certain situations if you had a father, because he showed you a different side of life, a different point of view. And certain things, you wouldn't have been exposed to certain things. You was probably out hanging at 15, 16. You wouldn't have been doing none of that probably. See? and you'd have been showed something differently, and you probably would have had a whole new different set of friends where he was living at. Your environment changed, and as I said before, to go back to my first point, how we socialize is different. So you'd have been socializing around different friends, and probably had a parent or two around them, or not. But you'd have been in a different environment. When we're in a different environment, we pick up different things. You probably would have played volleyball or something. I don't know, tennis or something. So we would have picked up. So your life would have been different with a father or father-like figure around. I definitely know I would have been different if my father was around. My father passed away, so I definitely know I would have been different if my father was around. Well, mind you, even more so now, people do, out of the siblings and kind of the family, they do consider you successful, correct? Successful at getting this. So, I'm somewhat successful out of the family, being that I finished school and all those things. But I know maybe things would have been different with the other ones finishing school. My father was around. So, do I think that an inconsistent father is better than a consistent father that's not around? I think it's better to have an inconsistent father, because I guess you're asking which wound is better to have. And it's hard to say, and I'm going to say it's easier to have the wound of your father because you can put a face to it. I heard even Jay-Z said it, like he had to see where he came from. Like even for the men, women that later found out who their father was, they glad that they found, like, oh, they had to see who they came from. Like they had to see, like, just to put a vision of it, just to put a face to who you look like and who you come from makes a difference. Even though I think you're gonna be scarred either way, because I know some are scarred. Father was never around. What I heard was, I'm not sure if it's true or not, but this was right around when LeBron James was in high school, and they were saying that LeBron James' father looked just like him, and he said he didn't spend no time with him, so on and so forth. Whatever, whether that's true or not. But they say he looked just like him, like he looked just like his father. They looked like twins, and he said his father was big and tall too. So, but that father created fire in him to do some of the great things that he did. But he's seen them. He's like, okay, well, I'm guessing he's seen them. He know the man, so on and so forth. And I just think that it's better to see it, because that's a less void to feel, because it also depends on the impact and what you do with it. To, like, yes, your father's not around. How much of it is making an impact on you, and why, and how, and what, when, what is it doing to you? Did it change your living standards? I would just watch Rayford Alston, and he was talking about his father wasn't around. His father was inconsistent, but he said his father had a drug problem. One of my homeboys' father wasn't around. He was inconsistent, but he knew his father. But one of the things that, we used to say was, maybe it's good that he wasn't around. Because what if he would have stayed? Like, what if he was turned into a woman beater or something? What if he couldn't go through the hills and valleys of being a man, and would have took it out on them and, changed them or something? Whatever it is, like, I think an inconsistent is better than a consistent not around, because it can still mold you for the better in the long run. Because I know people that father was not around, and it still made some type of impact on their lives in some way, shape, form, or fashion. right?
Yeah, I still go with inconsistent is not good.
Yeah, I think I'm right. I think mine is more efficient, but yeah, I guess so. I mean, do you got another pop up coming up? You thinking about doing?
I don't know. Maybe.
You debating on it?
Yeah, I just don't know about these 400 and 500 fees. So
400 or 500 feet.
$400, $500 fee.
You debating on it? Well, follow us. Follow our inconsistent selves. On all social media handles, the Dyson's Effect at hotmail.com is our email. Follow us on the Dyson's Effect on all our social media handles. Follow her as the one and only.
I am his Mrs. Dyson.
So it is, and I am Benevolent Coach on Twitter, and Your Benevolent Coach on Facebook and Instagram. Contact us, email us, any questions, ideas. If you got any issues, something you want to say about having an inconsistent or consistent father, make sure you like, share, comment this. And as always, I am your one and only Midnight Hour, Johnny.
This is Theresa.
And this is another episode of the
Dyson's Effect.
Peace. Love.